Hello, I'm the guy who has the greatest Super Bowl party and I know nothing about football because it's really all about the ads, which is the best thing about life anyway, is the ads. Okay, so I torched my notes so much that I decided just to put it on the laptop to do the intro to this. I'm going to bring the panel up on stage so we can start this. Laurel Bernard, Executive Vice President, Fox Broadcasting. Doug Neal, EVP of Universal Pictures Interactive Marketing. And Megan Watera, the SVP of Interactive Marketing at Paramount Pictures. Stunning, lovely, everyone. Okay, so as an intro to this, because we're not really going to be uber geeky, but we're going to get to some interesting stuff. So what I want to start with is, as all of us, whether it's film or television, studio executives all want what all marketers want. They want their message to reach the right audience at the right time with the right message. Perhaps the single biggest challenge right now is the fragmentation of digital advertising and measurement. At this point, there are over 760 ad networks, auction companies, and it's only compounded by an incredible number of companies that lay claim to have great tracking. Now that's digital tracking, not studio tracking, with over 350 analytics companies and 320 behavioral tracking options. Now in digital, the ad marketplace is complex and it's going to remain so. It's the buy side and the sell side markets are going to grow more and more independent and more important, and they're going to grow more automated. More importantly, media publications will increasingly be connecting their sell-side analytics to more and more real-time connections in their networks, allowing their systems to allocate inventory on the fly, changing pricing models, and even changing business models. So the next step is digital ad buying is going to become more complex. It won't get less complex, ever, so get over it. The sell side's got the best data. So there's too much of it, so it's going to be increasingly fed into markets that use big data, just like financial markets. And you won't be buying against media properties any longer. You'll be buying behaviors and outcomes. So you may know quite well what the context of your buy, or not know the context of your buy. You'll know the performance of your buy. So with that, we're going to go to our three leading members of the community. We'll start this out by saying nobody has a crystal ball, but these three each have a Ouija board. Or if you're going to be technical about it, I know it's called a Ouija board. Is that correct, Ed? You had the film for a while.
Ouija.
A Ouija board. Okay. So that's enough of the computer. Okay. So I'm going to encourage everybody to ask questions during the panel instead of wait and take questions after, because there will be things that are of interest during the panel. So the thing to do is just go, hello, and then we'll see you and identify you, get a microphone too, and we'll get into this. So I'll also be scanning, but it's kind of lovely because it's dark. Oh, wait, I can do this and see you. Okay, so question number one for the panel. This is for 20 points. Just hit the button now. The sweet spot, what is the sweet spot for digital? Now, I'm going to start this also by saying, it's interesting, I will say from talking to the three panelists, I actually learned quite a bit more about it's become very disparate between television and theatrical marketing, and more disparate than it used to be, I think. And perhaps I was just ignorant, but it really has changed. So there'll be certain things that I'm going to probably direct to Laurel that's specific from our conversation that is quite different from the theatrical model, but there are certain things that we can all address. And that's why I'm going to start out with the sweet spot for digital. So awareness, exploration, or conversion. Megan?
I think that digital plays a significant part, frankly, of all three. So in this day and age, early tenets of marketing, i.e. awareness, has the capability to really launch a campaign. So we tend to launch with sight, sound, and motion, i.e. a trailer. So Currently, more people end up seeing our trailers online than they do in theaters, so that awareness is extremely important, and we reach a myriad of audiences that way, where our trailer targeting always has to be just as strong. But case in point, I think our latest franchise, Jackass, Brad Grandpa launched, and within its first week, we saw upwards of 15 million views in one stream. So for us, awareness is a crucial part of the online campaign for everyone that we do. And then in terms of exploration, to me, that's the definition of the word interactive. So that's where we can really thrive. So the joy of search and discovery, having fans be part of our campaigns rather than shouting messages at them, having them really find a certain element of a campaign and feel like they can really own it, and then being an integral part of our marketing and our storyline online is kind of, to me, the definition of interactive. So in terms of exploration, that's where we can really shine. And then, in terms of conversion, we have to, as marketers, be everywhere that any given audience or consumer is looking as we head into our opening release. Ticketing is our bottom line, without a doubt. So whether that be on a ticketing site, within a recommendation on somebody's newsfeed on Facebook, for example, Twitter referrals, word of mouth, a strong search campaign, display advertising, we have to dominate the space as it pertains to conversion, just given the clutter and the impulse purchase nature and behavior of consumers as we head into our opening.
So that's interesting. We're gonna get into attribution for conversion, but Doug, do you have any?
I think awareness from our side is, to what Megan says, is that you can definitely hit a large audience if you have a great trailer, but there's a reality that the awareness that we're generating is really, hopefully, awareness of influencers and advocates. It's not awareness of the US at large, and I think there's a reality that and when we look at tracking studies as to when we do a trailer debut and kind of what the lift is, you see a couple points in awareness. Yeah. It's not like you go from 20% awareness to 80% awareness with your trailer debut or some of the initial media tactics. But what you do get is this core base of fans that become your advocates throughout the life of the campaign. And that's a really critical part of what we're building and helps with the other steps in the process.
And Laurel, I know it's sometimes a little bit different because you're dealing both with launching the product and then stemming the week-to-week decay.
I know. Once upon a time, I thought that launching movies was harder than building television, but now it's reversed, I think. No offense, you guys still have a really hard job. Because our world is not, it's not built the same way that it used to be. When I started, most recently, this last stint at Fox Broadcasting, it was long enough ago that we still were a powerhouse from a ratings standpoint. And while, Fox has still maintained a good level of success, ratings aren't what they used to be, and audiences don't all come to the television set the way that they used to. So for us, digital was a huge addition to our point of sale, like our day of, and it still is. The lion's share of our budget still goes there, but that's not the only place it's going anymore. We're really having to look at digital, especially pre-roll or different ways to get your video messaging out there as an ancillary way to build awareness. We used to be able to build awareness just on Fox. For months, we had our on-air, our free media, and we could build awareness on that and then really close the sale effectively and then worry about, chasing it for a few weeks after. Now we're in a world where as soon as it's announced, we have to start building awareness off of Fox, and so the digital space has become really, really integral to that, and then helping us, blast it out there and launch it on the day of air amongst all the other competitors that we have. And then now, almost on a week-to-week basis, checking in and seeing, how's the audience going? Is it waning? Is it time to come back and do another punch? And, of all the media, and we certainly use all of them, digital, and radio, because I love radio and I'll always stick up for it, but, they're really the only two that you can come in at the last second and really make an impactful statement, when you want to do something timely. So
that leads into the second question, really. In that earliest window, the awareness window, when we're not spending media dollars, do you find that for discovery and that initial awareness that digital is particularly effective for you?
Yeah, well, actually, now we're spending, but you know, we hit it from both sides. So we're creating more content early on than we ever have before. We make like theatrical trailers now, you know, and that's pretty much what we present at the upfront. And then we turn around the next day and we put them on. And you know, our biggest issues are like paying for music rights for that many weeks and things like that. Yeah, I don't think in today's world, with all the different ways that people watch TV, that you can just build awareness on TV anymore. I think you need to have a broader scope.
So you're doing both paid media programs and non-paid media programs then in that window. So, oh, good. Okay. Question? We're going to ask you that question.
Hi, Laurel.
Hi.
It's Brian Daly. I work at Zenith Media on the Fox business. Has sampling of full episodes become a big part of this initiative too, because of the decline in ratings, and it's the best way that you can get people to actually develop a word of mouth? Because you see more often, especially with Fox, you guys have done a great job of like last year letting people see New Girl or Mindy Project, the year before New Girl. Like, is that a bigger part of this digital initiative as well?
Yeah. But before I answer your question, I have to realize that I was just speaking as a marketer instead of as a representative of Fox Broadcasting. You really can build all your awareness on TV still if you buy it correctly.
And also, isn't Zenith your agency?
No,
Okay.
No, that's Fox Broadcasting. I mean, Fox Theatricals Agency.
Okay.
No, but seriously, yeah, the sampling has come into play, although, you know, I don't know, we like to do things first, and then we don't really like it when everybody copies us. And so we were super successful with New Girl 2 years ago. It was the perfect pilot. It tested great. We knew that we were going to have a little bit of a challenge getting people to, you know, come running to it from the launch. And we were able to do a great partnership with iTunes, who really got behind it, and then we worked with all of our VOD partners. And super successful. And then we did it again last year, you know, riding on our own coattails, but it seemed like the whole industry kind of exploded and decided to do it at the same time. And then we just felt like it was much too cluttered an environment. So this year we actually pulled back, and we haven't done any pre-sampling of any of our new shows. We did put Mindy out because we feel like Mindy's a gem that people haven't discovered yet.
Is that the James Franco episode that you
put
out? Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, everything, you know, I would say though the biggest thing we're doing probably is creating, like I was saying, creating more content right from the get-go. It used to be that we didn't really create extra digital content for TV shows until we were right on top of launch. And now we're hawking these poor people. They just got their show picked up, and we're like, what can we get? How do we get it? Can we get on your set? Can we talk to everybody?
That's such a rough life for them.
Well,
not.
It is a little bit.
Well. Okay, Doug, does digital and discovery early window?
Absolutely, but I think there's a few things that Laurel was talking about, and you know, she mentioned, you know, being first, and that's kind of become passé to some extent, because that's always what we say, is we want to be the first ones out there, but it does make a difference in terms of the clutter that comes about.
Yeah.
And you know, I'll give an example of, there was an ad unit that we ran with a big social media site that was one of the first ones that we did for The Purge earlier this year, and The Purge actually overperformed for us. But the ad unit was discovery in the feed, and it was a big video placement, and you clicked on it, and we saw an amazing engagement. Facebook, the social media company, was then selling it very extensively, and you started to see this ad more prominently. And I think users start to get numb to that unit. And so yes, it does make a difference. If you're one of the first ones out there, it's like if you're the first one that's got the billboard on Sunset before everybody else does, you get noticed. But then when there's a whole string of them, it's not as much attention. So our challenge is always, what is going to be that next thing to kind of stay in front and to be discoverable and shareable, and something that will really stand out as we are trying to get attention for our properties. And I think that's an ongoing challenge. There's great media opportunities out there, and Facebook still has great opportunities, but it's not as easy when you're being in a sea of a lot of other other
Right.
opportunities.
Megan, I know that's a key issue for you guys as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree with Doug. In an environment that has tons of clutter and competition, it's really hard to break through, especially early. So if you're months before a release and you're doing something, I'll just give you an example, like a Super Bowl spot, $3.5 million, and you're still 4 months out from your release, and how are you going to keep that sense of exploration, discovery, what have you, sustained for a few months? So just a case in point, our previous Super Bowl this year, we launched an app. So we tried to take advantage of a spot and extend the long tail for digital. So basically harness what we were doing with traditional media because it's such an investment. So we tried to launch an app for Star Trek right off the spot, and it was a huge win for fans because they were able to unlock tickets and see the movie first. So it was a big gift for fans and the fanboy community, amongst others. They could see the movie 2 days in advance. So we were able to sell tickets early out, which is a good point for us. So we just try to take advantage of these long lead drivers, whether they be traditional or online, and make sure that they have a digital extension that can sustain us for as long as possible.
Now, I'm going to ask you guys, because a lot of the things, certainly, that you want to do to capture attention are those big stunting types of events. Now, what's replicable, though? I mean, each time you're capturing, lightning in the bottle, but what can you consistently do, or do you really have to chase lightning every single time?
I think it's hard to have consistency other than the building blocks and the foundation that you're whether it's the search and the social and the kind of good video placements and segmentation and targeting, all the buzzwords. I think things that we are seeing change, and it's something that's becoming more prevalent with all of our films. I think you see it in television too, is the influence of cast and talent and some of the impact that they're having in social media. We're in conversations now in development meetings where it's like, okay, you've got casts that have a large social footprint, and we know that they will help with the marketing because they are accessing their fan base and can help seed content and push it out there. Certainly, you're going to always cast a film for whatever the best possible complement of talent is. But when I look at where we have a film with Kevin Hart coming out in January, and he's just a social media guru and has learned how to harness the power of social media and has really done it independently and just built his Instagram and his Twitter and his Facebook and is in all places and is doing the right messaging to build that. And it translates into helping to promote the film when we get into those windows because he knows how to harness his fans and get them to be excited. And so I think as we see those kind of building blocks, if we have more of talent and that footprint, that really is a help to kind of just launch a lot of the materials that we put out there.
Interesting, because then, like Maggie Smith's, 200 million Twitter followers probably just inverts the whole thing. So let me ask you, how many media sellers do we have in the room? How many people who sell media? Okay, so here's a question. Do you have a rough approach or a formula for video over display on your campaigns these days?
From our side, video definitely is an integral part of the mix. I would say on average, we're at 75 to 80% of each plan being video, and that can range obviously from display advertising that integrates big stunty video progressive to more targeted videos to content creators to even adding like a level of engagement over our video. So whether it be different rich media products or what have you, just to increase the level of engagement within a certain video, so kind of maximizing whatever is possible within one singular unit. We try to get out there as much as we can. So video is definitely a big part of the integration in the mix for us.
Well, I was talking about video. I think video is a growth area for us. Mobile is a growth area for us. Mobile video is a growth area for us. We're still sort of tied to making the biggest noise we can with display or a combination of display and video on, right around when our shows launch. It's different than film. I mean, film has its own kind of challenges competitively because, you know, you may have 2 or 3 very high-profile films vying for the audience the same weekend, and that's hard because people are going out of their homes and they're spending money, and you're asking them to do something, you know, extraordinary. Well, nowadays, trying to get, you know, a few million people to all tune in to the same place in a measurable time period is also sort of a Herculean effort these days. And so I know this is going to sound really stupid and this is going to come back to haunt me, but when we're getting down to a launch day on television, when we know we're competing with, you know, 200 other channels, sometimes we will overdo the display ads because we just don't want somebody else to do them instead. And I know that, like I said, this is going to come back to haunt me, but it is part of the reason.
We have a great pop under campaign to run for you.
I know, really, but it is part of the reason why I think we all end up with such a big footprint on our days of launch, because that is it, you know what I mean? It used to be that TV had time to build an audience, you could be patient, you could give people time to find a show, but if it doesn't pop the first day, it's such an uphill battle from that point forward, you know?
I think to Megan and Laurel's point, video is for selling a film is critical, and so we are certainly shifting the majority of our media, but includes display with progressives and other kind of units like that, into a video base. The big shift, and I'm not sure whether this is where you're going to go with the questions or not, and then it's the next panel as well, is we still spend a majority of our media dollars in television. It's a tried and true form. It has the awareness potential and the reach that we desire in order to open a movie. To Laurel's point, we're launching a new brand every time we put a film in market. With New Girl or Mindy, they have some awareness already, and so it's more sustaining, whereas we need to introduce people, and that's why video is so critical to what we do, and television is a great platform. With that said, there's so much video opportunity online, which is going to really, if somebody's going to figure out the code, the trick for us is being able to have that measurement in a way that can be comparable, so that, because we still think in terms of how many TRPs, GRPs we need to buy in order to hit our opening numbers. And TV hasn't quite, online hasn't quite made a comparable measurement yet. And I think if we have that where we can say we're buying 600 TRPs at a comparable or more efficient rate than what's happening on television, you're going to see a big shift. And we don't have it yet, but I can see that coming, and that's when things will really get.
Well, perfect. That leads into not the next question, but I'm going to jump forward. Well, not to pick on Nielsen because they're great, but you know, if we look at the measuring companies like Nielsen and others, will they ever be able to catch up with the reality of the omni-channel digital media distribution world? And you as marketers, do you have to figure it out for yourself? Do you have to communicate this to management? How do you best get a correlation to be able to drive your initiatives?
Well, I think that, you know, we're sort of at the pain point of all of that from the TV landscape, because and I realize, you know, it's so funny, it is a new world, and I keep catching myself in the old world, you know, because we're in launch mode right now, and what happens, like I was saying, the next morning is so important. But the thing that we're learning is that our audiences are doubling and sometimes tripling in, you know, 7 days. And when you start to add in all of the different ways that people can watch our shows, it can be an enormous leap, you know. And everybody knows this, so I'm not going to belabor it, but until there is a way to pull all of that together and be able to monetize it and make it make sense to the advertising community, you know, we're at a huge disadvantage. And so it is incredibly important from a advertising standpoint. You know, I think I said flippantly to Gordon, because we're fairly in-house, it really doesn't matter that much, but it does. You know, I thought about it, and it is really important for us too. I think the reason I said that is because we've gotten a little bit out of that, like, GRP driven, like we have to hit this threshold, or we know that we haven't built the awareness we need to. Because I really think we're starting to look at it more holistically. you know, it's not chasing a demo rating all the time anymore. You know, it's really about reaching out to the people who are going to be, you know, your first responders, who are going to be your evangelists, and making sure that they're the ones that you get tuned in at the beginning. So it's an interesting time. And then the last thing I have to say about it is that, you know, we're in this world where half of our audience is still traditional, you know, about half, more or less. It depends who's giving you the information. But, you know, DVRs are in half of the households, and depending on the genre, some are more viewed on DVR, some are more viewed live, and then, of course, sports, you know, I wish we could all be sports, but anyway.
I watched Sleepy Hollow live last night.
Yay, thank you. Yeah, we did good last night. But so we have this really hard time with messaging because we're stuck in between. It's like we can't stop telling you that it's on, you know, 9 o'clock on Monday night, 9 o'clock, 8 Central. It's like we can't stop saying that because half of the people still watch it that way. But then we're like, we started telling people to set their DVRs this season. We did a whole campaign early saying, set your DVRs. We tricked the system so that you could actually set your DVR about 6 weeks ago, which is earlier than you normally can. And so it is interesting, but we're constantly trying to figure out, you know, how to service the greater audience, and we're hoping that Nielsen catches up someday and gives us a rating that kind of presents the greater audience.
Okay, and for the theatrical beat?
Yeah, and on our side in this day and age, there isn't really one source that we look to in terms of effectiveness of our online media. We have to understand, kind of like what Laura was saying, is that even in the digital world, people are moving from platform to platform. They're consuming our content as well, including media advertising on different screens, and they're pretty screen agnostic. So we look for a mix of factors, and we try to set KPIs from the get-go, but it also depends on what we're doing for any given campaign, which is always different. So, you know, we look at click-through rate for display advertising. We look for even view-through, where we can capture people who didn't necessarily click on our ads, but then visit our materials or hubs after the fact. We look to search, we look to social, where we can have a two-way dialogue and really hone in and listen to sentiment. So to answer your question, there is no one source that we look at. We look at video views, completion rates, but I think it's also exciting for the digital space that we do have all those different avenues to look at. You know, we often see that certain things are popping and others aren't in our campaigns, and we can optimize into them accordingly. So in terms of explaining to management, it's always a difficult task to do, but it's helpful to say, here's what's popping, and that's not working in traditional, so let's shift. And, you know, on-air is not getting the numbers that they need here, so let's actually look to video views online. So I do think there's a shift happening. The channels are becoming a little bit less narrow, at least where we're buying right now, so it's exciting at the same time.
Doug, shouldn't your partners solve this for you?
That would be great. Somebody's going to make some money out of this. Is it? And again, it gets back to this issue of tracking, which is such something that we're just embedded in our systems, and in terms of how we measure the effectiveness of the campaigns. And there is not a good tool yet which says, okay, wait, let's buy the Sleepy Hollow spot and the Monday Night Football and these other 6 spots, and that should get us a 3% lift in awareness. Or maybe it would be better if we just bought YouTube TrueView against a certain target demo, and that would be just as effective, but we haven't seen that play out in the tracking that we get, and I think that's ultimately where we're going to end up going when the social measurement and the services can kind of encapsulate what is actually working, you know, because is it the TV spots? Is it the TV spots online? In our exit polls, you know, TV is still a dominant response, but it's hard to know, are they saying TV because they saw it actually on air, or did they see it when they were watching it on Netflix or on another platform that's really a digital platform? But people don't think of it that way. They just think of it TV content. Yeah. And so, you know, I think the measurement tools have to get better so that we can get better and be more efficient. As it's not like nothing's getting cheaper. You know, when you looked at the upfronts this year, I think all the networks were up 10%, 8 to 10%, and ratings are stable or slightly declining, so you're paying more in that space. Digital is becoming more efficient to some extent, but it's still, what's the right way to determine effectiveness. And I think there's got to be a good tool, and hopefully a partner will help solve that.
Now, I'm going to go and look for a question from the audience before I ask you each about your pain points. So right here is a question, unless you've already got one. Okay, right there.
Okay, I maybe shouldn't admit this, but I'm Cheryl Idell from Nielsen.
Yay.
Woo, Cheryl!
And first of all, the plug, if you stick around for the next panel, you'll learn a little bit more about what we are doing to catch up and get those total numbers and all that stuff. And we're going to be announcing some cool stuff at Adweek next week. But that aside, I have a question. I started with just a question until you went down that path, and I couldn't help myself. The question is, you talked about video versus TV and digital video and mobile video versus TV. When you talked about the media mix, how do you think about things like Hulu and the full episode players from the networks? Are those TV? And are you including those in your TV plans? And are you measuring them like TV? Or do you think of those as digital video? How do those pieces come together?
Well, you want me to start? I can start. I think Hulu's TV, you know, maybe not in the traditional sense, but I think that that's what consumers think. I think that it's a way for them to watch TV. For me, I use it as a promotional medium more than an advertising medium because we have such a wide array of our programming on Hulu, and so we're able to promote our shows. And you know, one of the things that's very important to Fox, and I'm sure to all the networks, is making sure that wherever people watch television, so to this point Hulu, that they know where the show came from, that they know that it originated on Fox, that they know that there's other shows on Fox that they may also enjoy. And what the network, you know, still does, but used to be able to do more quickly and more powerfully, is launch all of their own shows and provide that platform to launch everything, you know. And now, because of just, you know, our duplication numbers aren't what they used to be. People have their favorite shows and they come to Fox to watch their favorite shows, and thank goodness they do, but they don't necessarily mean that they watch everything, you know. And so being able to attach our promotions and find places to do that is really a huge goal, and what I spend probably more of my day doing these days is figuring out how to keep that intact.
I look at Hulu as television content, and I think part of it is how we buy, because we have a traditional buying arm and then digital, and so the digital falls into my domain, and Hulu falls under that. So it's television content, but we try to buy complementary to what our on-air buyers are doing. But I think it's television content actually needs a broader definition than just what airs on Fox or NBC or FX or other channels. YouTube has hundreds of channels that are creating content. That to me is content. Content is content, no matter what you're surrounding. You know, you look at and I don't get it, but PewDiePie, who some of you are aware is, you know, the #1 YouTuber right now with 10 million subscribers, and he's got his shtick down. I would never want to watch that on, I mean, I shouldn't say that in case he's here, but, you know, but there's lots of people that do, and I think we have to acknowledge that, you know, that habits are habits and they change, and this is just another form of content that needs to be surrounded, and it's a digital delivery mechanism. Hulu is a digital delivery mechanism for content that has been produced for television viewing, but it's all about, again, finding the target audience and looking for those content plays that we want to be surrounded in order to drive awareness for our films.
Yeah, agreed. You know, with something like Hulu, the example in particular, I agree it's television content, but it's still, you know, a digital behavior, and it just goes into the fact that, you know, we're trying to surround popular episodes online through our digital extension of media buying. So that said, it's finding that content wherever it is and then surrounding it. So it's more, to me, about the behaviors versus like what's TV, what's not, which is a difficult thing to measure. But it's more just how they're watching it, where to capture them. So it's less about defining it and figuring out where the audiences are.
You know, the other thing about Hulu that I think is interesting is that, and not just Hulu, so you know, all of the different ways that you can stream, and certainly VOD, and you know, all the avenues now, is for television. I think one of the negatives over the years has been that if you didn't start watching a show from the very beginning, you felt like you were out of it and you felt like you couldn't catch up, and maybe you had to wait until the DVD and spend a weekend, in bed watching 24 or whatever it was. And now you can get into it at any time. And so I really think that that is something that we've seen, the success of Breaking Bad, I think, is the perfect example. It has grown every year because people have been able to get into it, and then they watch it on TV on Sunday nights when they're supposed to. And so, so we're trying to also take a broader perspective of places like Hulu and Xfinity and all of those places, and give people an opportunity to get into the conversation without having to wait a whole season or, wait to catch up on a whole season.
So that's interesting. And Cheryl, thank you so much for bringing that up, because that's a really good point. But
We got a couple questions in the audience as well, when you're ready.
yeah, okay. But it's interesting. You brought something up when we spoke earlier about the disintermediation of your content across different channels, and the fact that, like, you will license the content in subsequent windows, but it needs still to call to the original asset in some way. So the ongoing validity of someone paying $100 million for a license for New Girl or something, whatever the product is, it still needs to keep the original viable for the ongoing lifetime asset of the television product.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a real challenge because there's lots of different stakeholders in the life of a television show, But one of the things that we keep harping away at, and this is more of a business thing and a marketing thing, is just that if it's not successful in its first iteration, it's not going to be successful in all of the other ones that follow it. And so sometimes it seems a little short-sighted when you're kind of looking at the whole, life cycle of a show, but really getting behind the launch, getting behind the first season, and making it as successful as possible, and maybe not making as much money that first season as you could, but putting the investment into making the show as strong as possible so that it bears fruit for a long time.
Next.
Hi, Marianne Thomas.
Okay. Marianne, and then we'll go there. Sorry.
Hello. Years ago, Sturgella Road actually had done this research where you're talking about tracking and exit polls, and you're talking about tracking. A huge part of movie studios and knowing when your lift is before a movie opens is tracking, and we had found that a majority of people don't even own a landline, right? So how has your tracking at the studio level changed, and how has that research changed? Because 5 years ago, there was a flaw. A lot of pre-tracking was done with people who had regular phones, and hardcore moviegoers, if they're 18 to 34, were not necessarily didn't have landlines. So the research, the pre-awareness research, was a little bit flawed. So I'm just curious, how has that evolved now with your tracking, and is tracking taking into consideration?
I'm going to have to turn to Cheryl on that, because I believe it's a combo of exit and online. Okay, 25% phone, 3/4 online.
Yeah, great.
Okay, right here.
Hi, I'm Seth Gore, and I work at Discovery. This feels a little tactical after some of these questions, but wondering how you guys are feeling about big, sexy homepage takeovers these days, and do you enjoy, is that something you like? Do you want to do more of, less of? Do you expect that some of that will shift toward more programmatic?
Remember the old East-West buy on MySpace? You buy the East-West page?
Yes.
Back in the dark ages?
From our perspective, it's not ever going to go away. Similar to the fact that we're selling a movie in sight, sound, and motion, we're also selling something, frankly, that looks awesome. So we always try to do those big stunty takeovers. There's a balance, and it's part of the mix. But I don't think on our end it's ever going to go away. We try to isolate it heading into release, and again, this is very tactical, but it's something that makes a splash, and to the fact of being top of mind to a moviegoer as they head into looking up, show times. Again, very logistical here, but it's something that we do like to see big creative out there for our films.
And also talent likes to see it.
And filmmakers, not gonna lie.
Yeah, who cares about them?
I think takeovers have their place, especially in the beats of a campaign. It has to do as much on the cost effectiveness. There's so many opportunities and options out there. And when we're trying to drive awareness and social conversation, it's like, will this takeover help us accomplish that? Or to Laurel's point, sometimes it's just blocking out another opening, and you just want to have a presence because you think another film that's going to be out there is going to have that presence. And so tactically, it's still going to be part of the mix, but it's always going to come down to, is it effective cost-wise?
We're just trying to make the most of it because, like I said, I don't think it's going to go away. But we're trying, years ago we started adding in social cues and hoping that maybe people would use it. We really don't expect a huge click-through. We put all the information that somebody needs in those ads. But, we're integrating things like countdown clocks, and that's kind of exciting. We're integrating that in traditional media, too. If we had digital billboards in LA, you would see them here now. But, in the other markets, we're actually integrating, it's only 2 hours until the show starts and things like that, and it's becoming part of the urgency message. So it helps make a little bit more sense of the amazing amount of money you spend to own that real estate,
And I have another question right here.
Hi, Doug. So this question is for everybody, but particularly Doug and Megan.
So you have to say who you are.
Oh, it's Brian Daly from Zenith, sorry. I wanted to ask about mobile, because I know that in the past, that mobile has been one of the biggest challenges for, I think, on the entertainment side. You see so many other brands, that are able to use it a little more easily because you can convert right away. You can see a Nike ad, go buy some shoes. But with film, there's not always the easy conversion. Is there a shift in how you're working with mobile? Is it mostly just video now? Is it, if you can develop a great app with a partner, sure, that's wonderful. But what are the changes in mobile that you guys are making to kind of adapt? And do you see at some point, this massive breaking point where mobile will be a bigger player and be a bigger part of the spend?
I think for us it already is, especially with our demo that 13 to 24 is a sweet spot, and they're on their phones nonstop. So for us, it's not just video. We try to, obviously, with the social integrations, where Facebook and Twitter are heading with mobile, it's a huge part of the mix. So we're already trying to just get them at that purchase point, if not, definitely during release week, but if not before. So for us, it already is a big part of the mix.
No, absolutely, and it's only growing. I think there's a realization, it's consumption and where people are spending their time and needing to reflect that and how we are actually connecting with it. I think mobile's growing. I think something that's going to be really interesting for us is the game consoles, and PlayStation's coming out with their new version, and then Xbone or Xbox One, which is called Xbone as their internal name, and the capabilities just for viewing digital content. These are all platforms that we need to make sure we have presence on, and everybody's got a phone and they're watching and texting and socializing, and so it's a core part. Does that mean, but something's got to give. You only have so many dollars, so we're still trying to spread it out as much as we can.
Yeah, and we're trying to hit mobile versus desktop, try not to be on the same places at the same time, so we're trying to see it from a more holistic standpoint.
So I'm going to ask each of the panelists to name 2 of their key pain points, not personally.
Okay, well, I thought about it since we spoke. I think for us in television, a lot of you guys come to us with, our people have great intent, we can show their intent, and we know they want to watch your TV show. And like I was saying before, intent is a model that works a little bit better for film than it does for television. It certainly plays a part in television measurement and getting ready for a launch, but there's so many options when people are watching TV that just because they intend to watch something doesn't mean that they don't intend to watch 10 other things, and it's going to be what they get to first and what's stacked up on their DVR and all of those things. So I think, as speaking to those of you who are sellers in the room, I think what continues to be so important is figuring out how to move that needle from intent to actual, action. And whatever metrics you can derive from the different ways that you guys get get your information to help us make smarter choices about what the things are that are actually pushing people to make that decision, and then showing proof that you were part of that mix, I think is really important. So that's one point of pain, because I just can't live 100% on intent anymore. We've moved from a 2-box world to a 1-box world, and now I think we're even beyond that. And then the other one is just the barrage, and I hope that I don't ever offend anybody by not getting back to you, but it's incredibly difficult to keep up with the amount of emails and now even like Facebook messages and texts that are coming in to, please pay attention to the different opportunities out there. So I used to say that about print people calling, but now I'm saying it about emails that come at the rapid pace, and yeah, that's it. I'm done complaining.
Doug, pain points?
I think the measurement question that we brought up before in terms of
the GRP corollary.
The GRP, and it just, I believe in this space. I think this is really where the future is. I still have to continue to validate and reinforce that, and so I think as these measurement tools become better, and it's the GRP issue, but it's also showing how the social conversation is influencing what is actually tracking measurement, and all of those tools as they come together, I think they're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. So that's one, is just this whole measurement. And the second one, kind of to Laurel's point, we've got some great relationships with so many partners out there. The ones that continue to get our business are the ones that are coming in with ideas that make sense relative to our film and to their property, so that it really stands out. It's like, okay, it's not just a standard plan that I've had too many examples of the cut and paste from another film that they send over and they forget to take the title off of, and it's like, a show, at least put a little initiative into what you're sending to us. And to Laurel's point, we're inundated with solicitations, which is fine. That's what we signed up for. But stand out, the ones that really come in with something creative and show that you're thinking about our film and how it really works with your audience, are the ones that are going to cut through the clutter. And instead of just setting up a capabilities meeting, or I want to give you the latest update on our research department did a study and you're really going to be interested in it, send it to me. And then if you could show me how that's going to apply to an upcoming title, I'd rather take my day and spend it talking about the marketing of my films than just looking through capabilities. And so that's a pain point.
I can't echo Doug more. Our philosophy is to try to think of 1, 2 big ideas for each film, and then every tenet of our marketing campaign to funnel up underneath that. So, and to what Gordon was saying, lightning in a bottle is something that I will strive to create for every single campaign, not always successfully, but just coming to us with a big idea, doing your homework, as silly as that sounds. And then to echo Laurel, it's the same thing, but it's on me to keep up with all the new technologies and all the emerging media and platforms that are out there. It takes my entire weekend to catch up every weekend. So that's a pain point for me, just to keep up, to be frank.
Well, I want to thank our panelists, please. And I want to thank you guys for great questions and great insights. And I will bring up the incredible, incomparable, and very lovely Laurie Schwartz.